to CCF House. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Melissa Ekberg. Oh, here's the microphone. Hi, Brody. We're also recording this as well. We'll put it up online later for everyone to see. A couple of housekeeping rules just to begin with. Toilets are across the foyer. There's also tea and coffee and water over there. If in the event of a fire you'll hear like a whoop whoop sound, and the meeting place is just across the road in the car park. Try and keep up because I can run pretty fast. I'm sure Harold can too. I'll start with just like to acknowledge the lands that we meet on today, the traditional owners of the Kaurna people, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So thank you for attending the Supplying to Gov workshop. We're going to start off with a panel discussion with myself, Harold Kahn from the Department of Infrastructure and Transport, and the industry advocate. So is it going to be Philip or Denise? It will be Philip as well, Philip Dowsett, and Denise Loftus as well. So I'll hand over to Denise to start us off.
Thanks, Mel. Hi everyone, and thank you very much for coming along today. This provides us an opportunity to sort of demystify a little bit of the supplying to government processes and procedures, but also open up that conversation about the nuancing of supplying to government. So I'd like just to start the question. So obviously everybody knows the people in the room, so Harold and where he fits. Did you want to just do a quick introduction?
My name's Harold Kahn. I work for the Department of Transport for a considerable time now. I started in '87 when they were known as the Highways Department, and we drove around red triangles with a white H in the middle. So I've been around for a long time, primarily been involved in delivery of major projects, but now for my sins I find myself looking after construction procurement. Something that we're very proud of at DIPTI, and with the help of industry, since COVID hit in March 2020, we've put out nearly $2 billion worth of work in the market. So that's been averaging about $100 million a month, with about 10 to 15 projects a month into the market. So that's a little bit of about what I do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. I'll just pass it down, this works. So my role at CCF, I'm the Director of Industry Engagement. So basically what my role is to liaise with industry and government and also private developers to make sure that everyone is getting along well, everyone's getting treated fairly, everyone's playing nice in the sandpit, to make sure that people are upskilled enough and have got the right skills for the trades as well, that the supply chain is also being looked after. In short, I like to say making sure that everyone's getting along in the sandpit. Make sure I'm looking after everyone. So my role, I've been at CCF for nearly 6 years. I started off in civil train. We've got a registered training organisation where we deliver a lot of funded programs, pre-employment programs. My bespoke training program is called The Right Way to Traffic, which I know that Matt up the back has utilised a lot of the kids that have come out of that course as well. So we're really invested in making sure that we have the right people for the right jobs and they are skilled correctly so everyone goes home safe. We also have a group training organisation that's relatively new, so that's been going now for just over 12 months, where we have over 50 apprentices on the books, and we utilise the civil contractors membership as host employers for those apprentices. So if you're after an apprentice, let us know as well. We can definitely help with that. That also assists with your IPP targets when you're working on government contracts, but it's also a really good initiative to make sure that the next generation is continuing to come through, because we are an ageing workforce. Our older guys are very reluctant to pass on their skills sometimes because they're scared the young kids are going to take their jobs. We're trying to encourage them that they're the ones with the knowledge. We really need them to pass on the knowledge they've got, otherwise we're going to have more interstate people coming over here and stealing our jobs, which is what we don't want. I also arrange a lot of industry briefings such as this, so if there's something that you guys want to hear from anyone, let us know and we can help facilitate that. We've got Brody sitting up the back as well, so Brody's recently joined the member services team. I also keep abreast of everything industrial relations, work cover, payroll tax, So anything you need to know about anything in civil construction, give us a call and we can help you out.
Thanks, Mel. I'm Philip Dowsett. I'm with the Office of the Industry Advocate. So I'll be presenting today, so I'm not going to go into too much detail because I think that'll be sort of explained as we go through the presentation. But effectively what I guess Mel and Harold have both spoken about, we've effectively got responsibility for the South Australian Industry Participation Policy. So what we've got responsibility also for is to make sure that we increase the number and diversity of South Australian businesses and subcontractors that are working in the supply chain of state-funded projects. So where Harold's talking about all the procurement activity that's happening in his world, we've got oversight of that. So Harold's group provides us with their acquisition plan, talks about the forward procurement. We look at it through the lens of the policy, and then we think about all the expanded economic benefit retention that we can derive from those procurements. So, that sort of looks at everything from dealing with, I guess, some of the challenges that you spoke about, but skills and knowledge transfer. It sort of focuses also on South Australian Aboriginal businesses, Aboriginal supply chain. So there's a whole range of different things that we consider. So I'll cover that in much more detail as we go through, but certainly from our perspective, we work very closely with our stakeholder partners, which are obviously the CCF, and obviously we work very closely with DIT. Sometimes we might have slightly differing opinions in regards to the best ways in which we can deliver outcomes, but we normally meet on a compromise, but it's always sort of with the best intentions of making sure industry is well served, well looked after, and has really provided opportunity. Obviously, procurement's a really competitive environment, and there's lots happening at the moment. So I think from our perspective, it's really sort of making sure that, one, we get the best outcomes, but just make sure that there's a fair spread of those businesses that are actually picking up those contracts and working in those supply chains. So.
Thank you, and I second that. So basically, my name's Denise Loftus. I work with Philip Dowsett at the Office of Industry Advocate, more so much in the building construction area, but yes, so thank you very much. So we'll start the questions now, and please, if there is something that pops up during the questioning and that you want further information on, please just raise your hand and then we'll address that question as it occurs. I'm going to start my first question to Mel, being the host today. So within your role of CCF SA as Head of Industry and Government Relations, can you please describe how you work with state government agencies to build awareness and advocate for South Australian-based civil businesses?
Oh, thank you. I keep forgetting about this little thing. We must buy more of these, Brodie. Primarily, that's the word, we do. So an example is if a contractor comes to us saying, I want to get involved in this, we'll use Port Wakefield to Port Augusta as an example. I want to get involved in that project. How do I do that? So we help facilitate the introductions. We also assist with businesses as well in making sure that they meet all the requirements, particularly around quality assurance. So there's the CCF code, there's also the ISO accreditation as well. So we have a look at the business and see which best suits their model. We also provide advice around Aboriginal engagement with both apprentices, trainees, and also the Aboriginal economic benefit back into the community. We look at contracts as a whole, and then we go to the head contractor and then also using Harold and Philip and talk to them about, where do we see this business fitting best within this model? How can we help them achieve what they want to achieve? How can we help them grow? We also can facilitate mentoring with other businesses. So with a larger contractor, if there's a smaller contractor who wants to go and be a competitor against the larger guys eventually, no one's afraid of that anymore. The management of the tier 2s and tier 3 companies are encouraging the smaller guys, go out and buy a small truck and an excavator and we'll help you. We will hold your hand, we will cover you, we've got you. We want to see the growth in the industry as well. So there's lots of different ways we can do it. I do have both Philip, Denise and Harold, all three, on speed dial. I do call them a lot and they always answer my phone and I'm forever grateful for that. But yeah, so that's how we do it. We just make sure we keep communication open and happy to talk and help anyone we can.
Fantastic, thank you. And I actually just want to second that. So just through some of the contracts that I've been involved in, we've noticed more and more how some of those tier one civil contractors and building contractors are actually working, and particularly in the Aboriginal space, working with Aboriginal businesses to build their capacity and capability, and we continue to encourage that. Now, Harold, question for you. What are some of the projects that you are currently managing in your role, and where do you see the opportunities for SMEs in the civil industry to participate?
What are some of the projects that I'm looking after? Look, probably 2 or 3 of the biggest ones that I've got at the moment, and one that's coming out soon, is the duplication of Main South Road to Celix, 450 million, stage 1, stage 2, and Victor Harbour Road duplication. So again, you know, circa $100 million. That got shortlisted 3 weeks ago. We have CPB, but we're yet still probably 4 to 6 weeks away from executing a PAA. That's been a change just recently is meet the buyer. Don't have events anymore, but we're trying as part of the TIPP that the Office of the Industry Advocate you engaging with the market. So part of procure is tell us how you with industry and engage SMEs, and we actually have an evaluation process. So Main South Road, Victor Harbour, there'll be an ICN gateway contracts executed, and it's it may so, you know, one of the things in Darlington was that we had and we had a 6:30 breakfast. So, you know, yeah.
Making an egg sandwiches.
Industry we help you with it. Right now, you know, because I don't think this is going to take we've got. So we'd be keen, you know.
While you're thinking about that, we can. I've got a question that's sort of fallen out of that for Philip. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. So in relation, Harold was talking about how through the tender evaluation that they're looking at how businesses engage with industry. What's the process that you go through when you're reviewing and negotiating prior to contract award to assess that and ensure that that occurs?
Good question, and dovetails nicely into what Harold has spoken about. So with the Main South Road, Victor Harbour Road duplication process, so we've now currently got the preferred suppliers tailored industry participation plan. So what we've done is we had a particular position that we had at that time where we developed a tailored plan. The tailored plan has since evolved over, you know, probably the course of the last 6 months. So what we've identified now is that, you know, what we used to have was a lot of broad information that was sort of parked in that document, talked about sort of their general sort of policies, it talked about their reconciliation action plan. But one thing that it kind of sort of missed, which we've now captured through this new tailored IPP format, is effectively really clear KPIs, everything now, and I'll cover this in the presentation, everything now that is embedded as part of a tailored industry participation plan process is either a percentage, it is a dollar value, or it is a number. So where we used to get all this really broad, arbitrary type of information that would come through, it's specific now. So there's no room or wiggle room for a proponent to escape that. And then what we then have is the ability to sort of look at much more sort of tangible outcomes. So once we explain this through the presentation. I think you'll get a better appreciation for how this new mechanism works, but I think it's important for you, obviously if you're working in the supply chain, of how that operates, because it's important to articulate your offering to those head contractors in the lens of what they're subject to reporting to us, and obviously what they're subject to, I guess, delivering and putting through as part of the competitive tender bid. But once we get that opportunity, it's game on. So obviously we look at that submission of that tailored plan as the benchmark. So what we want to do is we want to extract and we want to derive more economic benefit retention through the program delivery. So for us, it's really about sort of unpacking, and there's a real emphasis now to make sure that through that process that the head contractor disaggregates to the lowest common denominator, because it's almost a game of millimetres now, I think, in the civil space. Every tier one is looking for, or the tier two or tier three, everyone's looking for the competitive edge. So sometimes that can be in just identifying, another Aboriginal business, or diversifying that portfolio back through that delivery. Not just with one, but spreading the love across multiple businesses so that they've got an opportunity to sort of grow and develop, like Mel was saying as well, because that's important. The same businesses that get the same opportunities, look, it's good for them, but what's also good for the broader community. So, but we're inherently as part of that process. So, from our perspective, we'll work with the CCF. If we're not sure about a capability of a particular business, or we need to understand, look, we think the head contract has gone out to everybody that exists. Who else is there? So we always use a sort of a cross-reference point just to make sure that we're unpacking and sort of diving down and sort of doing a deep analysis of who actually operates and exists within that environment.
And with that as well, is that where businesses, it's also very crucial that they're registered on the SA Product Register as well, so you guys use that as a tool, and I know industry does as well when they're looking for people, so that's via your website, you can just go on it, it's really easy to register, so if you're not on there, get on there and make sure that's done. Yeah.
In your presentation, are you going to run through the difference between the TIP and an IPP?
Yeah.
No, that's
Thanks, Mel, and that's a really good point. We're actually rehashing the product and services register because we understand the user journey was a little bit clunky, so please know that we've heard that feedback and we are actually working on it. So now is a really great time to make sure you're involved.
Are there any questions that we've got from the audience
Yep.
at this point in time?
No.
Feel free to interject.
Yeah, absolutely. Just pop your hand up and we'll come to you. Now, I'm going to go back to Mel, and I'll come back to you again. Sorry, I'm mixing it up today. Mel, can you just describe, we've talked about that. If businesses were considering becoming a member of CCF and had aspirations of working in large civil projects, what are the benefits they would derive from their membership with you?
So, to be completely honest, there's not many people in this industry that we don't know. So anyone who's not a member of CCF, I strongly encourage you to become part of the family, because it's more than just a membership. You do become a part of the family. The civil industry is a huge community. We employ in excess of about 30,000 people in South Australia. Businesses who want to get more involved, come along, network, we can introduce you to the right people, we can get past the gatekeeper, you can ring and cold call as much as you like, and receptionists are bloody good at the moment, you can't get past them. So if you want to get that next level beyond the receptionist, we know the people on the inside, so we can definitely facilitate those connections over a coffee. There's a great gin distillery around the corner, we can go there. More than happy to facilitate those, or even e-introductions, we can help with that. And we can also help with, and I'll be completely honest, if you're not the right fit for that business, I'll tell you. I'm not into wasting anyone's time, so if I don't think you're going to fit there, or they've already got a really strong relationship with someone else, that's great. There's no point in anyone wasting their time if they're not going to get any further than what they already are. So really proactive in that, because that does hurt businesses, time wasting. So just give us a call, myself, Brodie, Renee, Rebecca as well, our CE. She's more than happy as well to facilitate those introductions.
Thank you. Now, Harold, how does DIT ensure that specific and measurable targets are set for Aboriginal economic participation within its projects to maximise opportunities for South Australian Aboriginal businesses and the workforce?
There's it's the requirements. Some government have come up with a magic equation. Input sense. So if we are delivering a project in Adelaide, or if we're delivering a project in Port Augusta, or we're delivering a project in Ceduna, we're about how many as Aboriginal in that community, and then we work and percentage of work to be undertaken by Indigenous or Aboriginal people based on the census data. So it's not, you know, says 2% is a good number or something like that. There's actually a bit of okay, so that's how we might add on an extra 1 or 2% for good measure to industry to create some sort of stretch. How we get people to commit to the procurement process. So we ask, Ian Nightingale and Phil saying report on this, and federal government, because at the moment they're you know, it's pretty important targets. So that's how we are held accountable. That's how we create them, and that's how we deliver on them. Have a look at Northern California, somewhere near 40. We had a 12%. So industry have been smashing hours. So hours is to measure dollars spent with owned organisations. So going to the targets on actual dollars spent with Indigenous companies as well.
Thank you. And that's a really important piece. The flow-on effects for spending money with Aboriginal businesses is significant, and what it does for generational challenges that they've been facing, it just, you know, you can bring one person out of a community into work and they actually then support their family and extended family. So it's a really important focus of the governments at the moment. Now, Philip, I'm going back to your first question because we've skipped over it. As part of the acquisition process, how does the Office of the Industry Advocate ensure at least one offer is being sought from a supplier based in South Australia or in the region if the project's based in a region?
Thanks, Denise. Well, I might sort of pick up on Harold's point, but effectively, as I said, we see every acquisition plan for every agency above 550,000. So again, we're looking at it through the lens of the policy. So I guess to Harold's point as well, what we do is we've obviously got a lot of projects, a lot of civil projects where we've got some really good benchmarking information and data. So for us, I think the ABS data is, it's a reference point, but we've lived, we've breathed it, and then we see all the industry participation plan reporting that comes through the entire life cycle of the project. So for us, we see the highs, we see the lows, we see the challenges, and then what we also do is we ask the head contractor at the end of the project completion, okay, tell us warts and all, what were the challenges? So from there we can sort of say, okay, well look, we were working with this particular business, this was a little bit of a challenge, these are the things that we might sort of consider moving forward. So whether that business is just a small, SME, or whether they're an Aboriginal regional business or whatever it is. So at least that way we can start thinking about that and what the mechanisms might look like for supporting businesses in a greater way through, future projects. And that information sort of shared with some of our stakeholders. We certainly share that with the department as well. So I guess for us now there is a very large procurement reform which is now in place, which has been effective as of the 1st of July this year. So what that now requires is every single government agency need to make sure there is a locally based business for any procurement above $55,000. So what that means is they have to find one. If they cannot locate one, and coming back to Mel's point, whether they're using the SA Products and Services Register, whether they're using the CCF or whatever mechanism, or the ICN, they need to basically identify that. So some agencies now have it embedded as part of their acquisition process, that they consult with our office, that they look at the products and services register. Then ultimately, if there's nobody there, they've gone through all those processes, they then need to basically advertise the opportunity on the SA Tenders and Contracts website for 14 days. So the Productivity Commission that did this really big deep dive on all government procurement, interviewed private sector, interviewed government employees. One of the things that was really clearly evident was there was a lack of transparency. So, quite often what we found is there was a lot of direct negotiation that was happening. Sometimes it was just that, there was not really much capability or capacity. But what it's saying now is that, look, even if you're a small business, government doesn't know what it doesn't know. There's businesses there that are identifying all the time. So for us, it's really making sure, and we really push and promote that to make sure. So anytime that we see an acquisition plan where there's a direct negotiation, we'll look straight away at their market analysis. And if we know that there's other parties that exist in this space, then we'll make sure that they've given a leg up. So we deal with the depth and breadth of all government procurement, obviously not just civil, but I think the civil space is probably one of the ones that's probably been bedded down over the last couple of years. I think we're now achieving good outcomes. Can we achieve great outcomes? I think we can. There's a huge pipeline of work that's going to come through. Even proportionally, though, we might only have 5% of the federal budget. We've got North-South Corridor. There's some of these projects which are, by volume scale, are unprecedented. So it's going to be really important that, we start considering that. The North-South Corridor team have actually got an industry participation plan and a process. So they've almost got sort of a higher level overarching framework for how they're going to consider this. But these are the types of things that we need to start sort of talking about as an industry body, obviously with our office, in consultation with the department, so that we can maximise what those opportunities look like. So I know I'm probably covering a couple of other questions, but just one last thing is that that's probably now the opportunity for industry to really think about how do you collaborate, because you don't know what you don't know. Go and talk to your competitors, go and talk to businesses that may be capacity partners, maybe go off and consider joint ventures if there's an opportunity for that. And there's a couple of mechanisms with, unsolicited bids? No. But there's a JV, there are certain JV structures which can sort of just be developed for proponents to come together.
Yeah,
unincorporated JVs. Yeah, so that's a mechanism where basically two businesses can come together. It's purely just for a project. Mm-hmm. So everyone's an equal shareholder. Yep. Nobody there is one superior to the other. So it really allows those sort of opportunities, and it's project based. So it's a lower cost than sort of setting up a proper formed JV, which is extremely expensive, and it carries for quite a long time. So. What did I say? Unincorporated joint venture. Yeah. Sorry.
So I think, did you want to talk to that, Harold?
Not to the unincorporated. As an industry, when we deliver civil jobs, what's your perception of how much is what you get? 20%? 50%? 80%? Who's got a number? Wrong.
5.
Wrong. Isn't it that 9% was spent?
That's very cool.
9% cost went. Look, tier ones coming in and taking South Australia. Australia If you return your last tax, that's Australia. 90%, not talking about 50% in South Australia.
Never would have thought it would be that high.
That's why I want
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that too. Well, I'm sure Philip will. Do you want to do first?
So in contrast to that, if you go back about 6 or 7 years before the policy was applied, you'd probably would have been lucky to get 50%.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the change, that's the impact of the policy, it's the impact, I guess, of collaboration between industry associations and government. When I'm talking government, it's us and it's including the department. So, you know, the more economic benefit retention that we can maintain and we can control allows for further investment, you know, in capital and in people and resources and things like that. So, you know, this issue of brain drain and all these things that's going across into the eastern states, look, we still might potentially have a problem with that because there's going to be a lot of opportunity that's going to be represented, and we've got a lot of capable businesses here in the state that might see Victoria, New South Wales being a really attractive propositions if we can get in there. But the reality is that, you know, we've got lots of work that needs to be done here as well. So that's probably almost part of the challenge for the department now, and I guess you as an industry, is how do we mobilise and how do we actually start thinking about this forward procurement opportunity that exists right here, right now. But I guess the conversations need to start happening really soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about preparing for what's coming now, preparing past the next 6 months. I mean, I know being in the civil construction industry for so long, you can't plan for more than 12 months in advance too heavily because it's a huge risk. But I think we're really fortunate at the moment with the massive infrastructure investment just by the state government alone. And then when you look at private investment as well, I would take comfort in the fact you can look forward to at least the next 2 to 3 years. It's not just a 12-month crystal ball you've got anymore. You can look a bit further than that and start investing in yourself, in your businesses, in your people, in your plant and equipment, gear up, and let's get it all done. Pretty much.
There's probably a big focus on the regions as well at the moment.
Oh, massive
as well.
focus on the regions.
You know, dollars in the regions that we haven't spent for a long time. So, you know, when the RAA talk about the safety improvements going on our rural corridors. So, you know, is that a question?
What do you think, and have you gone through this process, what participation on the tunnels will be?
The civil procurement, we look at that participation plan. Look, Susanna and her team have been working and engaging with Phil and the Office of the Industry Advocate. That's a $9 billion spend over 10 years or something. We're now nearly just through transport project delivery. So, you know, 2 to 3 years, transport project delivery will be putting out just as much as the tunnels will when the tunnels come online for the next 2 to 3 years. So taking on board Mel's point about you can have confidence in the civil industry, you can have confidence in the civil industry for the next 2 to 3 years, and then, you know, who knows what the blue sky is going to be when the tunnels come online, because, you know, this is only my personal opinion, and I don't speak for the government of the day, but notwithstanding the dollars that the tunnels are going to suck up into the economy, there is still going to be a requirement to put jobs out to the market, and that will be the challenge for the government of the day. So, look, take your point on board, but, you know, the other side is, as a client, when we go to the market to buy the tunnels, we want to have some confidence in the people that we're going to. So there will be international players that will the tunnel, because, you know, your little old, you know,
culverts, maybe.
Yeah. But, you know, look, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards.
Oh, no, just for general for everyone, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, 92% on the north-south corridor is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And that's not public, no, you know, and I think that'd be something that the public would love to hear about, that, you know, good news story, you know, that, you know, we delivered, you know, the government delivered something, an amazing outcome. The tunnels.
Media doesn't like good news stories, though.
They mail when they talk about the infrastructure spend, but it's hidden away. It's not overt. A special case, you know, one thing that we don't have is binder for asphalt. Okay, that was a concrete pavement, so you know we got a lot of economic benefit out of that pavement, that concrete pavement. You know, we even did deals with the steel coming out of Whyalla to make sure that, like, you know, Whyalla produces long products. I don't know if everyone knows. You don't get reinforcing mesh out of Whyalla. No one in South Australia makes reinforcing mesh. So we actually sent steel billet from Whyalla and did swapsies to make sure that the economic benefit was great for this state. So.
Yeah. Just going back to what you said about the north-south corridor, though, I mean, Susanna did mention at the construction industry briefing a few weeks ago, they're looking at about 450 truck movements a day when they're at full capacity, and 400 precast panels to be installed a day. That is massive. That is a massive task. So, and that's just for that project. You look at everything else going on, we're going to need about 1,000 trucks in SA cruising around on the roads. We're going to need a copious amount of precast concrete. You look at every building that's going up, that's precast. You look at, you know, precast is the way of the future, and we're going to have a shitload of it. So if you can get into precast, go for it. But or have any ideas on where we can make it all. Yeah.
Philip, did you want to talk a bit about the framework that you've been working with the project team on, and perhaps how that looks for the industry in our planning stages?
Yeah, that's a good point. So obviously there's a lot of activity that's happening now. It's a lot of feasibility, a lot of technical surveying that's being done. So they're really just trying to sort of come to terms with what's existing. So right now, even those type of opportunities there. So we're seeing a lot of technical advisory organisations that are coming in doing certain particular works. And then what we're sort of doing there is we're still developing tailored plans for that. So anywhere where we can see an opportunity for, even if it's a skills and knowledge transfer opportunity that might exist with an engineer that can go in and work with the team that might be based interstate, that's still something here that somebody else has then got knowledge that they can move forward with the rest of the project in, you know, within their own organisation. So from a high level perspective, we're going to be embedded throughout the entire process. So we've got basically almost like an MOU that exists with Susanna's team, and obviously she's the ED for, or the Executive Director for the North-South Corridor holistically. So the working relationship that we've got there, they've seconded a whole heap of people across from a whole range of different government agencies now, which, fortunate for me, we've had some really good working relationships with these people in other agencies. So I'm having a coffee catch up every morning, well, every second Tuesday morning with the most senior procurement person there, and we're just sort of unpacking things as we go. But the one thing that they're heavily invested in, I know they've spoken with the CCF, they want to make sure that there's lots of forward industry briefings that are going to occur through that process. So by the time we get there, no one should be surprised. So make sure you're aligned to your industry association, make sure you're aligned to our office, make sure you're just having a chat. So there's a lot of companies now that are actually already engaging with that group, and we've been sort of the conduit for that. I'm sure Mel could probably speak the same for her team. So if you think there's an opportunity there, or you want to try and understand more, then come to us. We might be able to give you a short brief, short summary. Look, this is likely to happen, maybe this sort of time frame. And if we don't know, we can get that information and feed that back to you. But I think there'll be plenty of opportunity for everyone to sort of really understand. But as I said, we're going to turn over every rock. We're going to be looking, and I don't care, it's the 1%ers in projects like this that are going to make the difference. So that's what we're looking for every single time.
Thank you. And I think that's a really great way to wrap up sort of the conversation in a sense that all three people on the panel and all three organisations on the panel are there to support industry. We're out there batting for you every single day. And I think, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
I hope you've picked up today that Phil, Mel and I, we might look like the three monkeys up here, but you know, yeah, we do. We're three, but we're one. You know, Mel's got us on speed dial, and the same thing goes back. I've got these two guys on speed dial, and when I ring, they pick up as well. So if you've got any concerns from your industry, go to your advocate, and you can be.
Oh, in a good way. I don't nag you. No, it's good.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to hand over to Philip now, and he's going to run through the Supply to Gov workshop, which is going to go into the detail of how and where. But it's also really important, I'm just going to follow that up, make sure you stay in touch with Mel, with our office. We have a whole range of services on our website, so please make sure you do that. And when you're out there in the market, and whether you are the tier one or you're actually then supplying to the tier one, talk about what you can offer to the engagement piece, but also the community. So what kind of economic benefit is your business taking back to the community from that project spend? And it could be as simple as, we've got some printing to do and we're going to go to an Aboriginal business to print that. Or we actually supporting, so currently working on a Lee Creek project, talking about how you're actually going to engage in the market in Lee Creek with accommodation and food. Small things like that really count when it's an industry participation plan. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So now I'm going to hand over to Philip, and thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Excellent. So thanks for joining us. So I've got a presentation now that I'd like to sort of talk you through. So it really is going to be sort of, I guess, broadly covering, I guess, the ways in which you'd need to sort of start considering how you're going to navigate your way through government procurement. I know it's a sexy topic, but look, I think it's important because of obviously all the things that the panel's just discussed. So for us, it's really about, one, helping you sort of identify, you know, who is the right customer for your business? Like, who's going to be paying your invoices? Who do you need to start talking to from a stakeholder management perspective? And then we're also going to sort of talk you, I guess, directly through about how you put yourself in the best position to be successful. So the presentation is really primarily broken down into 5 key parts. One, it's going to sort of challenge you with regards to thinking about, you know, is your business ready to actually tender? And when I'm talking about tendering, it could either be direct with the government or it could be indirect through the supply chain. We're going to give you an overview of the South Australian Industry Participation Policy, for which we've got responsibility. We'll talk to you a little bit about how you go about qualifying opportunities. Then about how you're going to plan and manage your bid response. And then also, I guess, give you some oversight as to how to best go about sort of reviewing and then submitting your tender to make sure that it's fit for purpose. So just for those of you who don't know us, I think we probably covered it, but our office is basically responsible for the South Australian Industry Participation Policy. Our remit really is to grow and increase the number of diversity of South Australian businesses that are winning government contracts. What we also make sure is that there is a very clear validation for economic contribution within every state government procurement activity. One of the things, and probably leading off from where we left with the panel, our office is also looking at ways in which we can sort of improve procurement processes. So part of our Act allows us to make a recommendation to people like Harold to say, Harold, look, I think what you're doing is okay, but hey, this is how it can be improved. And quite often what we do is we use, I guess, industry to tell us that. You know, we're a very small group. We're about 8 people. We cover the depth and breadth of government procurement, which I'll cover in a minute. But the thing is, the more we can understand about what's happening in the industry, what the bottlenecks are, then that's the mechanism for us to actually make those recommendations back to those agency stakeholders that can actually make a difference. And more broadly, we really want to make sure that we increase driving investment, create local jobs, and create really strong value chains throughout all state government supply chain. So why bother? Government spends between $9 to $11 billion per annum, so it effectively represents the largest procurer in the state. Obviously, the amount of tendering activity that happens is really sort of quite overwhelming, so it's really important to make sure that you're measured with about, where do you see the opportunities and where you're going to tender and where you're going to pitch. So businesses really need to make, I guess, a really educated decision about where you, I guess, put those resources and that cost and that time that goes into those tender submissions to make sure you get your best return on investment. So in my old game, far cry from what we're talking about now, I used to be the director of a company. We used to manufacture structural firefighting apparel. So for us, what we would do is we'd be dealing with state government agencies. They were all long-term contracts. But for us, I guess the process in actually engaging with that agency happened at least 18 months before the procurement activity. So what we would do is, and I just think about this maybe in context for what you're doing, but the thing that I would do is we'd start the engagement early. We'd say to the fire brigade or department, whoever we were dealing with, okay, we'd like to come in and just do a technical presentation. There's no sales pitch to it. We're just going to come in and tell you about the latest innovations, talk about the products, the things that can provide, the best firefighter outcome, on their worst day. So they were good, but what we did is we invited every stakeholder there. So they'd have their finance team there, there'd be a union representative there. Everybody that was going to be a decision maker or a stakeholder through that procurement was there. So what we did is we didn't tailor a response to just the finance people. If somebody else had a question, everybody was there, everybody could answer, anybody could ask, but they were all receiving the same answer every time. So that was really important for us. So I guess in context of what you're doing, think about that. Are you going to be working directly with the government, or are you going to be going and dealing with a head contractor? Sorry, I think that might be me. I think it could be me. Sorry about the beacon. Wow, I don't even have my email open. So from my perspective, just think about that in context. Who do you start talk to and when? And if you're not sure, reach out. Talk to the CCF. Come and talk to us. At least we can connect you with the players or the right stakeholders within, those organisations. As I said, you've probably got a lot of gatekeepers that get in your way sometimes. So, if we do an introduction, 9 times out of 10, and Mel would probably agree, we get that opportunity for those people to have the right conversations at the right level. So in the first element, I think from our perspective, we really want you to take an honest assessment of what your business is actually capable of delivering. So you really need to focus on how you go about sort of presenting and articulating yourself, to the agency or to those head contractors. So I guess from our perspective, we've seen lots of businesses that have grown over the last 6 or 7 years for which our policy's been enacted for. So from our perspective, we want to continue to see that. As I mentioned before, those 1%ers are particularly important. So for us, if we know about some of these businesses, and we've got a couple that have just identified at the moment, we've got a young Aboriginal man who wants to start a business. He's basically being offered some funding, but for him, he needs to have some sort of almost like a MOU or something that's in place with a head contractor to allow him to actually achieve that funding so he can actually go forward and deliver. So highly capable. So we've gone in there, batted for him. He's got lots of opportunities now. There's a couple of contractors that are actually, or head contractors that are already talking with him about what the future could look like for his business. So, those type of things are really powerful. And as I said, I never underestimate the 1%ers, because normally in the big projects, and whilst Harold was sort of talking about some of the higher level numbers that we've seen on the north-south corridor, just all these amazing little outcomes that we'd seen with some small, medium businesses. And let's be honest, we're a small to medium-sized business state. That's where 90% or plus, operates within that space. But even some of the technology that was used, just even in the check-in system when you went out to site, on the north-south corridor. It was a locally based business that was based in Salisbury, so there was lots of opportunities that existed beyond, the types of industries that we're involved in here. So, even as you're talking or collaborating or talking with, other businesses within that space, encourage them to talk to us, encourage them to make sure that they're seeking those opportunities with the right people. So the next thing there, or here, is really sort of making sure that you're sort of considering the resources and capability that you have within your business to be able to complete the quotation and the tender. It can be a bit of a challenge if you're a sole operator. You can imagine that your time is basically devoted to every element of your business. And sometimes it might be worthwhile seeking out somebody else if you're not really comfortable with writing a quote, or doing a tender or providing information that might even relate to an industry participation plan report, maybe consider getting some external sort of capability and capacity to sort of assist you with that. So there's lots of businesses there that we deal with. For us, we really act as a strategic connector to say, look, hey, you could go and talk to any number of businesses. Most of them be just happy to have a conversation with you on a coffee. It doesn't cost you anything. They understand the cost pressures of small to medium companies. So I guess working within that landscape, it's important. One, challenge yourself. Make sure you've got all the relevant systems in place. Whether it's OHS or whatever that might look like in your scope. Make sure that you've got, I guess, a clear understanding. What have been the things that you've been unsuccessful with in the past? Like, what have you learnt from that? Was there something there that, that was lacking or was sort of, could have been improved upon? So making sure that you're thinking about how you overcome, what some of those obstacles have been historically, so that when you're presenting that opportunity back to somebody next time, that you're in a better position than you were previously. Understanding your market, I think, is going to be important, but I wouldn't underestimate, the opportunity there in collaboration. It was interesting, again, in my old game, you'd go and talk to your competitor and the sales guy there loved to tell you everything. So you got to have a really good snapshot as to what was going on in their business. I'd be a little bit more tight-lipped, but as I said, those salespeople were really open with lots of information. So those opportunities, whether it's an industry briefing, don't just sit there and just think about what does it mean in context to your business. Go off there, start talking to people, because you never know where those conversations will turn into something later. It's the same for Mel, I and Harold. You go off and you talk to people all the time, and then all of a sudden that bit of information that you heard from that one business will crop up just at the right time when you're having a conversation with an agency department or a head contractor. You go, oh wow, did you know that they're doing this? Or do you know this business now has this capability which they didn't before? Businesses are growing, they're diversifying out of necessity. So I think the thing for us is that more that we can understand about you and your business, that we can advocate for you. We can unashamedly advocate for any South Australian business. So I think to Mel's point, she wants to make sure there's obviously the right strategic fit, as do we. But what we will do, we'll still serve you up to that stakeholder. It's really important that you have the conversation. So you might not hear all the things that you want to hear from the head contractor or even the department, but I think there's an opportunity that should exist for you to actually have that opportunity to have that conversation anyway, just to understand where you're at, understand the things that you might need to sort of work on, or some obstacles that you might need to overcome to sort of, get to that ultimate goal. So again, I think really it's about sort of thinking about who the customer is. I think I've really sort of impressed that upon you now. One thing I think that really is important is really sort of understanding what is the unique selling proposition that you have as a business. Are there things there that you do that is a value add that maybe your competitors don't? So think about that when you're going and talking to somebody. If you know there's 4 other companies that do exactly what you do, what's going to differentiate you? If you know that they're subject to reporting to the department, if you know they're subject to reporting to us, and they need to know workforce hours, they need to know all the supply chain that exists within your supply chain, that type of information, and making sure that you're in a position to provide reporting to them. Clearly demonstrate that you'll do it, that you'll give them to it each month, because we're going to go chasing them and then they've got to come chasing you. So just make it easy for them to transact with your business. As I said, I'd be really sort of talking very early about, or any stakeholder that could be potentially sort of, someone that you would wanting to be engaging with now, whether they're future projects, current projects, whatever that might be. But just think about that in context to not only what's in the here and now, but also think about what's going to be coming in the pipeline. So lead contractors, all of them, anywhere there's a project above 550,000, the lead contractor is responsible to our office for the reporting of those industry participation plans. So from our perspective, it's really important that we can connect you with them, even if it's midstream in a project. Sometimes we've seen projects which have delivered out in the regions. All of a sudden, they'd made a commitment to say, oh, look, we were going to go and work with this company. All of a sudden, that company's busy on other projects. And they're scrambling now to think, oh, well, geez, who else can we utilise? So they'll come back to us because we're seeing in their reporting or even in their forward procurement activities that there's an opportunity there that might exist. So from our perspective, just because the contract's been awarded, you might not have been nominated on their original industry participation plan, but that doesn't mean that that's game over for you. So again, the more we know, the more we can advocate. I guess as you're talking to either head contractors or the department, there's going to be lots of different things that influence their decisions over time. So it's really important that you're having that regular conversation with them. Understand what it is that their needs are in the here and now, but keep that door open. You know, sometimes we just get people who just go off, oh, hey, I need to go and talk to Fulton Hogan because, you know, it's been 12 months. Find the way just to have short conversations with them, touch base with them, make sure they're aware of what's going on. And obviously they've got their finger on the pulse as to what they've tendered for, and you know, the more they can sort of think about where you are or where you might have, you know, evolved over time within your business, then you know, they'll certainly be considering you for, you know, how they might integrate you as part of the next delivery. This slide really is just trying to illustrate that, look, there's lots of government buyers, but obviously from our perspective, you know, SA Water, renewal, this is probably the space that most of you are probably going to want to play in. But the thing is here, I think, you know, most of those agencies have got their own different forward procurement activities that are happening. They've all got their own different drivers. Lots of agencies are doing things at lots of, you know, different times, which might sort of compete with other priorities that other departments might have. But yeah, that's probably really all I wanted to cover on that. On our website, we've got a very broad industry sectors page, covers everything from capital works, pre-qualification, tenders and contracts website, Skilling South Australia, general business information. So it's important that you sort of make sure that you're keeping up to date with that information that's occurring. By show of hands, who's registered on the SA Tenders and Contracts website? Yep, cool. Look, my advice would be is be registered, but don't put any filters on there. You're only going to get one email a day, and then what you can do is just go a quick scan through what tenders are coming out. So at that point there, that might be the opportunity where you might go, oh, okay, look, I know who's going to bid for that. I might go and have a conversation with them, because they're going to have to develop a bid, develop a tailored industry participation plan, or at the very least a standard industry participation plan. So if you're having that conversation with them early to say, I know about this, then be on the front foot. Also, the Industry Capability Network, as Harold mentioned, with the Main South Road, Victor Harbour Road, they will have a platform there, what they call the Industry Capability Gateway. So that gateway basically will act as a bit of a procurement portal. So if you're not registered there, it's free to do so. You can also get visibility there through their ICN broader registry, so you can actually, you can have a paid subscription, you can just have a free subscription, but it really just allows you to have just another level of visibility. Now, finding opportunities. So, did anyone attend the forward work plan? Yep, I know Mel did, I saw you there. But the department covered a whole range of different infrastructure programs that it's going to be delivering over the next couple of years. So, obviously covered all their broader government infrastructure, marine infrastructure, road maintenance, whether metro, regional, looked at public transport, regional roads, a whole vast range of things. So, we've got a couple of links in there which obviously will take you to that, but that's basically advertised now. It's on their website, so you can go in there and have a look at that. Everything's listed down under those categories that I've just mentioned. More broadly, every state agency now has to put an alert out for all their forward procurement activity. So this is going to become really important. So whilst Department of Infrastructure and Transport have got their forward works plans, you'll find everybody else is on here if they don't already have it on their website. So that's going to be a really informative piece of information. So it's going to basically, every time the department registers a procurement, it's going to sit in there. It may take time for them to sort of get to the point where everything's there holistically, but I think it's a really good step forward, and it's going to just at least provide that level of transparency. One disclaimer, some of that information that's going to be contained in there, I think you might find will change over time. There might be dates in there and things like that. But what I'd recommend is that you go back to the agency contact that's registered on there and just ask them and just seek updates on it if there is something of particular interest to your business. So where we fit in across procurement, I mentioned before, we are pre-tender. So we look at, when Harold sends me an acquisition plan, I'm looking at the Main South Road, Victor Harbour Road duplication project. What we're doing is we're looking at that for all the expanded economic benefits, which I'll cover in a second. So what we do is we basically develop a tailored plan, or we might just recommend a standard industry participation plan. I'll talk about the distinction between two of those, or both of those in a minute. During the live tender phase, obviously that's the agency's part. They do their evaluation, do their assessment. Now, pre-contract award is where we cut back in. So what we do is we basically look at the industry participation plans that are submitted, make sure that they're compliant, then they get scored and assessed by the agency. Then from our perspective, what we do is once the agency then shortlists, what we do is we then go through a negotiation process. So as I said before, that tailored IPP that they develop is just a benchmark that we'll use to say, okay, we think there's an opportunity here to extract more. So we push the department, but we also push the business more importantly to make sure that they're delivering outcomes. Then what happens is we lock down that tailored plan. We've got all those firm commitments, and then what we do is we monitor that throughout the life of the contract. So I guess what I'm saying there is if there is an issue that you're seeing, or, you know, hey, look, we know we were nominated on that particular plan, we're not deriving anything here, come and let us know. What I've seen historically is there has been some challenges between bid teams and then delivery teams. And this is within businesses. So the bid team goes off and writes these huge checks that the company at some point in time has got to go and cash. And then all of a sudden it doesn't always necessarily translate to the project delivery team. So we've got some mechanisms in place which catch that. We've had a couple of issues where we've had some really remote regional projects where it was clear that didn't happen. So what we've done is we've got a mechanism now that we have monthly reporting for every project that's delivered in that region now. Those businesses are making sure that they're getting fair opportunity. We've got eyes and ears on the ground there that make sure that those things happen. So from our perspective, again, if you've got a challenge or there's an impediment that you think that you're being overlooked or whatever, then you can certainly come and have a chat to us. So in general terms, the industry participation policy really measures three key areas. So it's employment, for residents of South Australia, capital investment, and it also monitors the use of supply chains, which employs South Australians. What we can do is we can either deploy, as I said, a standard or a tailored plan during the tender process, and then, as I said, we monitor that for the entire term of the contract. So more broadly, and when I was talking about those expanded economic benefits before, these are the elements that we're considering when we're looking at that agency's acquisition plan. So we want to understand, is design and specification an obstacle? So if you've got something there where an agency has been really prescriptive and put something out there, it just says, well, look, clearly there can only be one business that can do this, then what we'll do is we'll go back to the agency and say, no, there needs to be an equivalent. You can't just say that you want the Laminex benchtop. All of a sudden that counts out Polytech down in the southeast who are manufacturing, got a deep supply chain. So anywhere there's an obstacle in regards to either Australian standards or we're starting to talk about proprietary products, if you see it, let us know. There's certainly something there that we can do. Could be slightly different if we're dealing with, high-tech medical devices, which I don't think you guys will touch on. But, in that instance, it's definitely important that you make sure you come back and let us know. Aboriginal economic participation is obviously something that we touched on before. It's important. Every single state government agency has got a percentage target that it needs to expend with South Australian Aboriginal businesses. So Harold was talking about the definition before. It's 51% ownership. There's a whole range of different, clarifications that we provide in regards to ownership of South Australian businesses and the like, so we can demystify that for you later if you like. But that's going to be intertwined into every single industry participation plan that you see now. And it's not just us. It's not just us banging on about it. It's also the agency. It's their remit. They need to deliver on those outcomes. Trainees and apprentices we touched on before. This government's got a massive appetite for new trainees and apprentices, and there's lots of conduits now. It's far easier, it's more cost effective to take on trainees and apprentices than it ever has been. So there's lots of mechanisms which I'll touch on later which can support that. Harold mentioned before structural steel. Anywhere where there is structural steel, and Harold and I have had lots of conversations, he goes, oh, how much is enough? Well, just anywhere where there's structural steel, it applies. So we used to talk about significance, so anywhere there's structural steel, 20% of the weighting goes to economic contribution for that particular procurement, which is particularly important. We look at regional development, we also look at socio-economic outcomes as well, plus sustainable procurement. So more importantly, everything's weighted at 15%. I think the next slide might cover this a little bit better. Oops. No, it doesn't, maybe the next one after. So 15% basically is looked at in isolation of price, performance, risk, all those other things. That's Harold's problem. All I care about is the economic outcome to the state. So
That's my problem.
that is your problem, but that's okay. I'm better yours than mine. I haven't got any more hair to lose, Harold. So that's just a really clear thing. But we've also got the ability to dial up the weighting. So we've got a couple of procurements that are happening now that develop some sovereign capability for specialised equipment in the medical space. But we want to develop something that can actually occur here in the state. So we work very closely with the agencies. If we think there's a way in which we can achieve a better outcome, then we can increase that weighting. There's even been times where the CCF have just said, look, we think this is an opportunity. How do we go about doing this? So again, it's really sort of important. Does industry participation apply to your business? As I said before, one of the prerequisites now for the agency, at 55,000, they've got to seek a locally based quote. So if you want to look at it in that term, then yeah, the policy really starts there, and that's the prerequisite that they need to deliver on. From 220,000 up to 550,000, the agency discretionally can use the industry participation plan. They can do a tailored plan if they want. But from 550 to 50 million, they're mandated. They've got to do a standard industry participation plan. It's an online document, which I'll cover in a minute. Once we get into the larger value contracts, it's got to be a tailored plan. It normally considers a whole range of different outcomes that we're trying to seek and trying to get the market to or through the competitive process to make commitments against. But Harold would know, there's lots of projects that we've got which are well below that threshold, $18, $20 million contracts, got tailored plans. They're really sort of quite broad now with the elements that they cover. This slide really articulates that. So as I said, 85% of the evaluation score is going to be based on those measures. The 15% purely just looks at that. So it really sort of looks at differentiating those parts of the procurement. But yeah, anyway, I think we've covered that. We do have a couple of mechanisms that we use to capture economic benefit. So what we've developed now is a statement of intent. So quite often these types of questions will be asked really early in a procurement process. So there might be an EOI that might go out to the market. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like a tailored plan, but it's easy for the head contractor just basically to just go through and to say, yes, we will deliver outcomes for this. What we then do is we use this as a benchmark for all those tailored industry participation plans that come later. Who's familiar with the standard IPP? Has anyone seen that before? Yeah, it's an online document, sells scores, covers a whole range of things, tender value, number of new trainees, apprentices, estimated value of South Australian labour, etc. So this replaces that old economic contribution test. But as I said, this is scored, this is weighted, but it's also a mandatory requirement. So if you've got questions in regards to how to complete this, and obviously normally it's the IPP that's almost the very last thing that actually gets completed as you're developing your submission, just give us a quick call. We'll talk you through the mechanisms and how to go about completing it. The new tailored IPP format, as I mentioned before, it's a dollar value, it's a percentage, and it's a number. So head contractors need to make a very clear commitment in those metrics. As I said, they're all the sections that a tailored IPP can contain. I thought it might be worthwhile, we'll quickly just go through some of the elements of the tailored IPP, and the reason for that is that you need to think about where you fit within the supply chain. So this table here basically gets the head contractor to disaggregate every single subcontract work package. So from our perspective, it's important that you make sure that that your business is nominated and represented there. So it looks at all the primary packages and it also looks at all the subcontracted work packages. So everything that you see here as a subcontractor is probably the space that you're going to be sitting in. So basically the way it works is you've got the head contractor, they make a commitment. They want to be able to get as much information in here as possible. So the more they can disaggregate, the more they can get down to those smaller work packages, the better that their final score will be at the bottom. So they get measured and they get assessed against that. So gone are the days where they just sort of aggregate everything up and just put it through with a dollar value and just some form of broad economic benefit descriptor. It's very much now based on the percentage of the whole total contract value. So all those percentages are broken down in that way. The one thing I would say with this as well, what we do is before we get to the contract award, so we're going to go through this with Main South Road, Victor Harbour Road, they have to basically then completely unbundle that. We need every name of business, we need every value of contract, everything then basically forms part of the contract conditions that move forward with that project. So This makes it easier for the head contractor up front, but as we get to the more, I guess, the pointier end of the procurement where they're about to be contract awarded, we go through this, and then also we go through that negotiation process as well. This section here is really important. So this talks about opportunities for South Australian businesses, and more importantly and specifically, it's for SMEs. So what we do is all these areas here, the business needs to complete as many of the work packages as they possibly can for businesses they identify as being small and medium enterprises, which is going to be a lot. But historically what had happened is that macro level of expenditure used to not get lost, but it wasn't clear, it wasn't implicit through this process. Whereas now it is, they've got to nominate every single business. Down the bottom there, those industry briefings, we get them to put their money where their mouth is. If they're going to go and run something at the Port Adelaide Football Club, I've got that in the brain. If they're going to run something at the South Adelaide Football Club, we want them to say, look, we're going to spend $5,000. We're going to have an event there. We want industry to come in. We want this to be meaningful. We want proper engagement. Then that's also what we get them to commit to. Skills and workforce. So what this will also do, this will tell us through this minimum head contractor commitment how much of the workforce is going to be South Australian. So they might say, okay, on this particular project, yep, we reckon we can get to 89%. But we think if we can get this business and this business and this business online, we might be able to get to 95%. So they make a minimum benchmark and then they set an expanded target as well. The next section here looks at trainees and apprentices, looks at new, looks at existing. That's going to be really important because they'll want to know about your people, who exists and what they're doing, because that forms this number. Investment in South Australia, this now just looks at new investment. I won't bore you with this too much. It's really going to probably mainly be at sort of that head contractor level. But one thing that does feature in here is the value that they're going to invest in skills and knowledge transfer. So if they see an opportunity that they can uplift some of your people, then they need to make a commitment, and then we're going to say, okay, well, where's that $150,000 of investment? Show us. Give us the name of the business that you've actually worked with, and we'll go and talk to them just to make sure it's being delivered and it's appropriate and it's meaningful. Aboriginal supply chain, I think we covered that before. The agency now is going to be setting a target. They're going to have an expected target for those outcomes for that agency. So what they'll do at the top, we'll work with the agency. Power will come through and say, yep, I want 10% fill. We're going to put that up there. We're going to make a statement to the industry to say this is what we want. What happens then is the head contractor makes a minimum commitment. So Harold says 10, yeah, we'll hit 10, that's easy. We think we can actually get this to 17. So they'll make that expanded commitment as well. The difference now is they've got to then list every business. So if it's, it's Peter Kittle, or if it's Birribee, or if it's, Intract, or if it's Raw, whoever it is, they've got to nominate that business there, and then we'll validate that. Sometimes some head contractors will go through Supply Nation. It's not a bad thing, but that doesn't necessarily qualify whether they're a South Australian-owned business. Our policy only cares about that. It might seem a little bit protectionist. It's not designed to be, but it's really designed to make sure that those businesses get fair and equal opportunity. Almost exactly the same is replicated for workforce. Head contractor commitment minimum and expanded. And then what they'll do is they'll break it down. If this is a 2-year contract, then basically period 1, 2, 3, 4 represents 6-month milestones. So there might be a slow uptake at the beginning of the project, but by period 2 and 3, they've got the most boots on the ground. That's probably where likely we'll see the majority of that workforce participation for Aboriginal people hit its stride. So, as I said, all the head contractors report to us for the duration of the project. So, I think what I've just explained, start thinking about that in context. We'll PDF this for you if you want to have a copy of this. I think it might be slightly different to what you've got as a handout there. But I think it's really important, I think sometimes some of the head contractors think, oh, this is all a bit of red tape. But if it wasn't there, do you think we would have gone from 50% to 90 plus? I think that's the reality. It's a little bit of extra work, a little bit of extra paperwork and things like that, but the reality is it's proven to be successful. But we need to continue to drive that. This is the reporting model that we've got. We've simplified this. If you're subject to reporting, then come and have a chat to us. We can talk about through the new framework for what this looks like. It's much more simplistic, but again, just think about you, or think about the head contractor that you're delivering with, and making sure that you're providing that reporting regularly and on time. So qualifying the opportunity, again, actually just out of interest, who's got a business continuity plan? Good on you, Harold. It's good that the department's got one, mate. That's fantastic.
Well, it's
Yeah.
good for industry that you know that we've got a continuity plan in COVID.
Give you a quick example, so I can't help but defer back to my experience, but so we had a business continuity plan. We used to supply all the New Zealand Fire Service with every bit of structural firefighting kit that used to hang off every firefighter, both islands. So then you have an incident, earthquake. All of a sudden you're dragging firefighting equipment that was damaged, dirty, contaminated. We were dragging it from North Island to South Island. But we had relationships with the Air Force. They were dragging product in and out. We'd actually had everything pre-locked, so logistics was covered. We had operations there that were maintained. They were laundering these garments 24/7. Every time Harold, so he's a forward commanding officer, so he would basically always have a fresh kit ready to go in. So they're doing mass urban search and rescue sort of activities there. So at every point in time, that firefighter that was doing those activities was protected with, basically a piece of kit that was fit for purpose, clean, and was going to provide the highest level of protection if it was needed. So we had a really detailed continuity plan there, but then when we won the South Australian Metropolitan Fire Service, we had something there that was then completely rejigged for this state, dealing with really large, broad geographical territories, whole things like that. Firefighting operations are a little bit different here to there. Some are common, some aren't, but we retwigged that for that particular environment. Same for when we won Hong Kong. We had something, Hong Kong, basically you're just dealing with, mass high rises. It's a different landscape, but it was developed each and every time. So think about what that means, and that continuity plan is what happens when the lights go out. What happens? How do you maintain continuity of business? I've seen some contractors here that had huge contracts with SA Health, and they didn't even know what a business continuity plan was. They said, okay, your building burns down now. How do you maintain all that warehouse of products that you've got there? How do you maintain supply? They couldn't answer it. So, well, maybe split it, or think about ways in which you can manage that risk. So think about what that looks like for you, but I think it can sort of help showcase that to a head contractor, and they'll go, okay, yeah, this business has got to work with them. So do you tender? I guess that's always sort of the $1 million question. Some of the things you probably need to sort of think about with the associated project, or the risk that might be associated with it, is the cost, the schedule, the project management, technical solutions, the performance, the quality, customer service. If you win that, how are you going to make sure that you deliver against it? Because obviously then you'll be sort of bound by contract. So that's something that you definitely need to sort of start thinking about as well. It's also important to sort of consider the bid for the contracting, assessing also your likely competitors. What are we going to do that's, as I said before, what's going to differentiate us? What are we up against? Some businesses will just go in there and buy work. That's just a reality. So your IPP might help you, or it might not. You could get an interstate company that could come in and they've just flown under the radar. The department sees it and goes, geez, either, unless it's completely outside the realm of possibility, it just represents a risk that they're going to come in and fall over. But value for money is part of the process, but value for money also now, through these recent Treasurer's instructions, also requires agencies to think about industry participation in direct correlation with value for money. So it's embedded now together. So really, as I said, just think about the risk, think about your competitors, think about who else is existing in that landscape that you might be up against. Okay, so understand the process. So the agencies, obviously, when they go to market, they'll be thinking about the requirements of their outcomes. They'll be thinking about the consideration of their broader agency. They'll be identifying their market approach. They'll be going through a risk analysis as well. And they'll determine, obviously, the selection and evaluation process that they'll be subject to, or that they'll go through. Obviously, they'll determine the time and when you need to go off and submit, all those type of things. There's a range of different ways the government will go out. They'll go out through RFT, RFS, EOI. There's a whole range of different terminology that exists in that space. But it's important that you understand what the likely outcomes are going to be sort of seeking now. But hopefully there's some measures in place which are going to sort of simplify those processes for you as a business. I won't cover that too much now, but if you're looking to sort of understand or demystify what that looks like, you can reach out to us and we can give you some more insights. So Element 4 is really about pre-qualifying, or you've qualified the opportunity, so now it's really sort of time to start thinking about your bid and your submission. So can you present compelling value? Have you been realistic about your success or your chances of success? In my old game, unless I was 70% sure, I wasn't even going to tender. I wouldn't even bother. There's some companies now that, you know, that we've identified, they are Aboriginal businesses. If there is not a short select or pre-selected tender group that they want to actually go out to the market for, they won't bid. They know that, you know, they don't always represent the most value for money, but they are still a qualified business that's got lots of capability, lots of capacity, but they're really clear, and they know that if it's just going to go out to open market, they might sort of step away from it. Sometimes they'll bid, sometimes they won't. But if the agency, and through us, where we've made a recommendation, say, look, narrow the field here, you've got abilities through our policy, through your procurement policies, to actually say you want to go out for a select tender, then they can do that. So anyway, that's probably just one of the things that is a bit of a nuance, but probably worthwhile understanding. If you're writing a bid or writing a submission, avoid just doing what you did last time. Don't just do that cut and paste. Make sure that every application, you know, is the same. But if it's asking about your broad experience, that might not change over time, and include those other projects that you've been working within. Tender writing is a skill as well, as I said, so don't underestimate the power of that. You know, the agencies are going to be there looking at competitive processes, or the head contractor is going to be looking at a whole range of bids that have come through. Does yours stand out? Is yours clear? You know, is your offering really clear to what the outcomes that they're trying to drive and they're trying to deliver, and what they're subject to through their contractual terms with the department? So think about that. It needs to be holistic. But again, you know, it might not just be somebody that's going to come in and assist you in actually physically writing the bid for you. They might be able to come in and just say, well, look, let's understand more about your business. What else are the things that you've got that are covered that we should be making sure that is articulated to either department or that head contractor? If you're tendering directly, make sure that, you know, you're just reading all the addendums that come through. There could be clarifications, I guess, in the head contractor space that might be coming back to you periodically, or every 5 minutes, or whatever it is, I'm not quite sure, but just make sure that you'll be just being responsive and you know, providing that information back to them. Obviously they've got time pressures that they need to consider as well. Probably one thing that I've often seen is it's really important to make sure that you've just got the right person. So if you've got other people in your business that you think can add value, so you might have somebody that, you know, works out in the warehouse, but, you know, they might have some ideas about how you can do things differently with some of the logistical stuff that you're doing. Go and talk to them, ask them about, okay, what does best practice look like for us as a business? We've got our sort of our day-to-day as to what we do, but on this project here, it's, you know, the geographical location is going to be a problem. Even getting access to that site there. Do we have all the equipment that needs to go into that, you know, is going to make sure that when we get on site that we're able to do our job and do it efficiently? So talk to people within your business and get their feedback. You're the GM, you probably understand most of the things that happen within your business, but don't underestimate those people that are, you know, embedded. And if you've got different people working on different parts of the submission, just make sure that, you know, you're all aligned, you've got time to review, you've got time to plan, retrace your steps as well, because that's going to be important. You might have started off in a position there, but, you know, over time you've understood a little bit more, you've spoken to other competitors, there might be things that just inform your logic as you go. You certainly need to make sure that you consider your prior experience, past performance, the methodology for how you can actually physically go about doing your job, your capabilities, your capacity, obviously your economic contribution to the delivery is particularly important. Who are the resources, who are the technical skills that are embedded in your business? Make sure you answer all the questions in the format that's required. We get lots of businesses. I've got a tailored IPP at the moment. It started off at 8 pages long. I've got a submission of 268 pages. I've got to go and wade through this document this afternoon. I'm not looking forward to it, but it's my job to extract all the economic benefit for that. This is using the old format. The new one, I think, is really going to sort of is going to cover that moving forward. But it's really important just to make sure that, you know, everything's succinct, everything's clear. If you've got a requirement, answer the question. Say that yes, you can meet that requirement. Cool. Yep, they understand that. But if there's something in addition that you can add, incorporate that underneath there as well. But as long as you've been very explicit about that, yes, we can do it, or, oh, geez, we think we can, but look, this is the things that we're going to consider, and we'll make sure that we have this in place before we get there. So you need to put your best foot forward. You can't hold back with your submission. So there's no guarantees that either Harold, his team, or the head contractor is going to go out for best and final offerings. So you need to be sharp, with your pricing, be really clear about what you're putting forward. All competitive, all tenders are going to be highly competitive. Avoid motherhood statements and fluff that doesn't add value to your submission. Don't assume also that the buyer knows who you are. So you just need to make sure that if they've asked you a question, that you're answering the question. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. Demonstrate that you meet the criteria as well. That's always going to be really important. If there's anything that's conditional of your price, you need to put that in there as well. So if you're subject to currency fluctuations, you're probably not. But anything there that is something there that is conditional, then make sure that you're sort of clearly identifying that. Make sure that you can demonstrate that you meet the selection criteria. Don't just say you do. We've had some agents or had some businesses that we've dealt with that have said, oh, look, yep, we're going to come across and we're going to integrate with your IT system. That's what they wrote. And this is, $15, $20 million contract. And then the reality is they need to say, well, this is how we're going to integrate with your system. We'll be interactive and we'll have operationalisation within the first 2 months. This is who we've engaged. It's going to sort of help us bridge the gap. So they're really clear. They can see you've got a process, you've got a plan in place for how you're going to deliver. Think about maybe what you can do also just to add value. So what might be cheap to you as a business might add enormous value for a contractor or a head contractor. So think about what's valuable to the client. Obviously the aim is to be successful and not be debriefed. So in regards to reviewing submission, might seem obvious, but I think the key thing there is good writing is rewriting. So if you've got something there that you think you've done 100 times before, just make sure you get somebody else to proof it. Is it formatted correctly? Have you had somebody else obviously just there to be able to sort of review the response? Have you double checked all the financials and things like that? That's always going to be really important. Are you aware of the timing as to when everything needs to be submitted? All those type of things are going to be critically important. Contract award now, I think contract management is probably something that's really important. Obviously you've signed a contract, and whether that's with a head contractor or whatever, then obviously you've got obligations that you need to meet. So if that head contractor is expecting reporting from you, and it could be reporting that comes to our office, could come to Harold, whoever it is, be aware of what your obligations are. So we've seen some horror stories where agencies or state agencies have had contracts in place and the supplier became a little bit complacent. Oh, we know everybody in that department there, it's all good, yep, we've got everything covered. All of a sudden, at the end of that contract, the agency said, all right, we want all of our reporting now, we're going to go out to the market again, we need to know exactly what's been expended, how much has gone for this and this different product. That caused an absolute nightmare for that business, and how they recovered from that. It didn't end well for them. So, just think about whatever you've got in a contract, that make sure that you're sort of clearly aware as to what you need to deliver against for the term of the contract. Keep in contact, regularly with that stakeholder that's embedded in that department or that head contractor. It's really important to make sure that they're aware of what your activities are. If there's a problem, unless you think you can solve it quickly and discreetly, I'd probably declare it. Have the conversation with them, talk about what the impediment is. It's probably better it's probably a lot easier to actually have that conversation there and then about a potential issue than all of a sudden you get to that point of failure and everything just falls over. It's not a good look for you, it's not a good look for them reputationally, and obviously at the end of the day the department's going to probably have some words to say about it if they find out about it. If you're unsuccessful, really important that you go off and seek a debrief. So in my experience, I've seen a lot of agencies that get caught up with, oh, it's prohibited, we can't talk to you about this and that, but they can talk to you about your submission. So ask the questions that are pertinent to your submission. How did we rate here? How did we perform there? Was there anything that was, that was lacking? Or what also did we do well? What was the things that helped, stood us apart in certain areas? So you can sort of say, yeah, okay, we're on the right track here. Here's also some other elements of our submission that we can actually bolster and improve upon. Lastly, I'm just going to quickly cover our Connected with Business program. This is what you're involved in today. The Products and Services Register. So this is now an online database that we have on our website. So I'd recommend that if you're not already on there, that you do so. It's free to register. What we're basically looking for is some business information of your organisation. So For us, we're promoting this really heavily with all state agencies. We talked before about those mandatory requirements at 55,000, having to seek a locally based business. So this is a really good conduit. So even as Harold mentioned, there's going to be probably some big contractors that might roll in that might be helping us deliver North-South corridor. But they're going to be subject to the same requirements as everybody else that's bidding, and they're going to need to seek as much locally based content as they can. And we'll make sure of it, but this is just a good place to actually sort of start that process and making sure that you're getting that visibility. A lot of local governments will utilise this as well, so it sort of just goes beyond state government. We have a ready to tender online format as well. So what that does, it basically breaks down into 4 key modules that you can sort of access anytime. So covers, are you ready, in regards to sort of the tender and being in a position to tender. Talks about qualifying opportunities, talks about obviously planning and managing the tender response, not too dissimilar to what we've done today, but if you need a refresher, this is also just a good resource that you can sort of circle back on any time. As mentioned, agencies have got specific targets with regards to South Australian Aboriginal engagement. We've got what we call our South Australian Aboriginal Business Directory. So that's got about 125 Aboriginal businesses listed on it, and they cover everything from ICT contracts all the way through to obviously civil construction. So in addition to that, there's 54 businesses that aren't on the register, but we send that. So Harold asked me, Phil, can we get a list of the copy of all those businesses that are there? We can give him that full holistic list. But if you're an Aboriginal business, I'd definitely recommend that you're on there. We're really pushing hard for Aboriginal businesses to make sure that they're getting visibility and making sure that they're competitive. But I think this is also sort of a good place to make sure that you're registered. Just wanted to point out, so the Small Business Commissioner obviously has got a role to play with regards to payments. So if you're sort of either working in a state-funded project and there's an issue with regards to sort of payments and things like that, that's a sort of a good place to start. We get a lot of information that comes through to us. It's normally sort of then referred back to John Chapman and his team there, but it's probably just important that you're sort of aware that that's obviously what they can do. If you want more information on that, we can send you a little bit more about sort of their remit and what role they play. Skilling South Australia, as I said before, it's never probably been more cost effective to take on a trainee or an apprentice. So embedded within the Department of Innovation and Skills, they've got what they call skills advisors. So they can talk you through, the best way to engage and support and talk to you about all those incentive programs that exist.
And you can also talk to CCF to civil chain as well.
Thank you. That's what, pregnant pause for that reason. Thanks, Mel. This is the checklist that you probably just want to go away and consider, just to make sure that you're sort of thinking about, all the points of entry that you need to make sure that you're registered against. So I think, obviously, we've covered those 5 key elements now. So I think there's going to be lots of things for you to go away and to think about. But as I said, from our perspective, we can unashamedly advocate for any South Australian business. So make yourselves known to us. We can have the conversation with the department, with the head contractor, with the tier 2, whoever it might be. But we can also do maybe introductions into other businesses that you may not be sort of thinking that there could be some form of alliance with into the future. So, really sort of think about, I guess, how you use those opportunities. Thank you for bearing with me. As I said, government procurement and policy is probably not the sexiest thing to talk about, but having said that, it's important. As I said, we've come a long way, I think, in the last 7 years. My philosophy is, and certainly the advocates' position is as well, is that this is something that's going to continue to evolve. We'll continue to sort of push the boundaries. So for us, we want to continue to make sure that this does evolve over time. So if we've got feedback that comes from industry, we can take that on notice. The advocate's a statutory authority, so he can effectively do what he wants with the policy within reason. So, he's not afraid to push boundaries. So, as I said, the more we can understand what's happening within industry, then we can make those recommendations back to him to enact those positions and think about how we can do things differently. So, were there any questions?
Well, there's no questions.
Sorry.
SA product and that we're a buying company, so we can.
Oh, absolutely.
Only because we've got a couple of hydrojet trucks
Oh,
and
yes, yeah.
stuff, so we're
Which company? Sorry, which company?
PA plumbers.
Okay, yep.
And we get into a lot of non-destructive digging and stuff like that. So we're doing some stuff with BMD at the moment, McGill Road. So we want to try and get into that further to boost business.
Absolutely.
Buy some more trucks and stuff like that. So we not only do non-destructive digging, but we're also, we put the cameras down the drain when they lay the new stormwater or sewers to be able to CCTV surveillance, all that type of stuff. So, I just wanted to make double checks.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, any business, so whether you're small, large, whatever, you can register on there. As I said, it's free. The only thing is that we control the link that links you to our website. So if somebody's doing the wrong thing, you have to go back. So basically, you make a declaration. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is our capability. These are the areas that we perform in. If you're making false declarations and things like that, then and we understand it, we investigate, we can cut you off. But the reality is that we want as many businesses on there. There's so many different platforms that you do have the ICN. There's lots of different databases that you can be on. If you'd asked me 12 months ago about whether I should be here, maybe. But I think now with the procurement reforms, I'd be on there for sure. It's not me spruiking it. All I do is just have better visibility as to who exists. So I've got somebody in here in our office that manages this, and what I often say to agencies, so I'll just say, Harold, look, contact Roman. If you need to know business and you need to understand who operates or who we've got in our database within a particular sector, he pulls out all that information and gives it to Harold. But we can do the same for a head contractor, anybody. So, yeah, as I said, now I think it's probably the time. If you've got an interest in either working directly or indirectly, then I think it's just sort of a good.
No, it's a good idea, I think.
Yeah.
But if anyone here needs to have anything done like that, let me know. I've got some questions and stuff here.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm probably very aware of some of your competitors, but again, it's probably worthwhile register with our office. We can maybe have a quick chat about what it is that you do, and then again, the more awareness that we've got, then you never know. It's always amazing. I haven't got the best memory, but when it comes to business, that type of thing, I just go bang, it's just on tap. Okay, who's who? It just comes to you at the right time. So anyway, those type of conversations are really important. Harold, closing comments?
You're right, Andrew. You've got it.
I'm already out of going to
Just checking.
Oh,
Just checking.
Barra fishing?
No, it's time for AFL championship to go.
Oh, fantastic. What age group?
19.
Sensational. You've seen your son?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question, which I get asked an awful lot. What are the penalties if the participation plans aren't met?
Well, didn't cover that. So the Industry Advocate Act allows the advocate and also me as the deputy. So we can impose fines on businesses if they're non-compliant. So we haven't had to use it in anger yet, but we're getting to the point. So what's been happening, there's been these procedural guidelines that have been around since April last year. Every agency has known about them. We've held their hand and some kicking and screaming. We've just said, no, the procurement reforms have gone through. And we're not going to handhold anymore. You're either compliant with the policy or you're not. So a participant to the contract mill is basically a contractor that's supplying to government, but it's also the government agency staff.
Okay.
So if they're not compliant, then we can impose fines on them. So normally we would probably come with a warning. We would give them 10 days to either respond or develop some sort of corrective action. But there's a couple of businesses now that I won't mention obviously, but we've put the screws on them, we've told them what their requirements are, so we'll probably now work with the department as to whether or not we issue a directions notice. So we do have abilities to sort of take things much, much further, but there's got to be an evidence trail. We've got to make sure that we give the business the opportunity. But normally the way we'll operate is, we have advisory groups that sit within all those large tenders and those large contracts. So the advocate will sit with the proponent and say, okay, tell me about what the impediments are. Are we on track? I'm not asking for your reporting right now. Your reporting is due when your reporting is due, but they need to be able to say, we've got a problem. And then we can either maybe negotiate that or talk that through. But if we can't get to that or they're not disclosing things, really good point, I'm glad you mentioned that. So we are freedom of information exempt. So if you came and had a discussion with me and you said, look, you know, geez, we've been contracted with doing something with SA Water, they want to allow us to do this, there's nothing that's coming through the pipeline, you know, we've been told we've got this contract and nothing's been enacted. And you come to us, we can have a conversation, and then we can work out between us what the plan of attack is. So I'm not going to move without you, but I'll be as bullish as I need to be, but also I want to make sure that I preserve the relationship that you've got with your client. But at the end of the day, we've got a responsibility, and that's the beauty of our offices, that we have that independence and we can do that. So it's really up to you to sort of think, hey, utilise that mechanism, but we can go and ask the question of the people that have to, or the ones that have made the business case to do something. So, yeah, thanks, man.
I've got one around the IPP. When we submit pricing for companies, they often send us to the IPP to complete.
Oh, do they?
Yes.
The standard one?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Now,
interesting.
obviously, the service we provide is more of a scheduler rate, so we can't be putting pricing or anything on the bottom of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So should we be filling it out at all?
You could. I don't know how they're accessing that information though.
I don't know.
That's strange. Maybe if we can have a chat offline, maybe I can just go back and re-educate.
Yep.
It's not bad. I can understand where they're going. It probably makes sense, but yeah, if you're working with a scheduler rate, you're not just going with a fixed contract price. So it's a little bit hard. And then as they're distilling that, they're going to go, this doesn't make sense, because the algorithm that sits behind that does the automated scoring wouldn't contrast you well against another business if that's the case. So yeah, we maybe take that up as a separate conversation. But yeah, that's an interesting one. I haven't heard that one yet. We've got some collateral that sits up on the table there, talks about a whole range of different programs. My business card's on there as well, as is Denise. So if you work, but if you work in the vertical construction space, you probably want to be talking to Denise. If it's civil construction, you probably want to be talking to me. And obviously Mel, I think she knows a bit about that. But yeah, that's sort of just, I guess, within internally how our office is sort of structured. But yeah, as I said, some information there that might sort of support what you've heard here. If you want a copy of this, I'm happy just to PDF it and send it to you directly. So yeah, just let us know if it's of value. But as I said, we also operate just on one-on-one advocacy as well. So if you want to come and have a conversation with us, you know, we're doing a lot more of this in this space, especially with Aboriginal businesses, and I know Mel's doing a lot there as well. You know, we need to make sure that we provide support to those businesses, and you know, we'll make sure that we sort of look to sort of, I guess, break down some of those barriers to entry that, you know, some of those organisations have. So tell us about what that means for you and your business, and, you know, we'll try and think logically and laterally about how we can sort of overcome some of those impediments.
Awesome. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate
thanks
that.
guys for coming.
Yeah, make sure you reach out.
Yeah, and yeah, like Philip said, if you want a PDF of that, let me know, and I'm happy to email it out to everyone.
Yeah.
And we have recorded it, so we'll upload that onto the website as well.
Fantastic.
So if you want to watch back, you're welcome to.